now call the March 15th San Diego County Board of Supervisors regular meeting, San Diego County Fire Protection District. Ask everyone to please rise.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here with you today. Before I begin, I feel like it would be a good day for us to pause for a moment. If you want to close your eyes, but let's take a few deep breaths and lift up our thoughts and intentions for our community, for our nation, and for our world, and for the millions who are fleeing home and land right now for fear of survival and safety. O gracious one, maker of heaven and earth, designer of both the grand expanses and the minute and the microscopic, source of love that is higher and wider and deeper and longer than our human minds can grasp, we come to you today in humility and in gratitude. We thank you for life, for breath, and for your peace, and we pray for peace around the world. We thank you for the divine spark that you have placed in every creature on this planet. May we recognize that spark and see each other with your eyes of love, humility, and kindness. May we be good stewards of all that you have entrusted to us, all that you have placed under our authority and into our care. Today, as we go to work together to make San Diego the finest city in the land, help us to act with character and with conviction. Help us to listen with understanding and with goodwill. Help us to speak with charity and with restraint. Give us creative strategies for complex situations. Give us wisdom where there is confusion, and give us hope where there is despair. Fill us with courage and discernment to be the leaders that the people need. Help us to see the dignity of those who disagree with us and to treat all persons, no matter who they are, with the reverence that your creation deserves. Help us to be servant leaders and role models for those who are watching us, even from afar. And finally, O Creator and Sustainer, renew us with the strength of your presence and the joy of helping to build a San Diego worthy of every human person. We ask this as ones whom you formed, who are confident in your goodness and your love. Amen.
Thank you. Please remain standing. The Pledge of Allegiance will be delivered remotely by Sandra Guzman's 6th grade class from Smythe Elementary in San Ysidro. We welcome our 6th graders. Thank you for joining us and opening us with the pledge.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. And it's an honor to be here. Thank you again. Okay, ready, Jessica? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. We hope you have a wonderful day at school today. Thank you all.
Same. Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. We will now proceed. Vice Chair Vargas.
Oh, they're gone. It's okay. I just wanted to share that Sandra Liz was recognized as Teacher of the Year. So I got to say congratulations to her before, but we didn't get to say to her before. So anyway, I wanted to put it on the record. So thank you.
All right, thank you. We will now proceed with our proclamations. I'll give the first proclamation honoring our psychiatric emergency response teams. Accepting this proclamation will be James Rogers and Mark Martin. Throughout our time over the last few years, this board has made a high priority out of moving aggressively in areas of mental health, substance abuse training, areas of behavioral health. A key thing early that we did in my time on the board here was to significantly beef up and increase our psychiatric emergency response teams. It really is about getting the right care to the right person at the right time and in the right way. And our psychiatric emergency response teams help us do that, with law enforcement having historically been the #1 responder of mental health and psychiatric calls. And so the goal was to take a trained PERT clinician, a licensed behavioral health professional, and pair them with a law enforcement officer who also is trained in psychiatric response, and the two of them as a team going and responding to situations. And we know in those cases that we get better outcomes. In recent years, we've moved forward with an additional service around mobile crisis response teams. For an individual that is not a danger to themselves or to anyone else, we don't need law enforcement to go at all. Often the presence of law enforcement, no fault of the law enforcement, can escalate the situation. And the options available to that individual are generally jail, hospital, emergency room, 5150 hold. And so the mobile crisis response teams fill a really important gap for an individual who's not a danger to themselves or someone else. The right care to the right person at the right time, but we still need our PERT clinicians, because a large number of those calls are going to require the response of law enforcement, the individual being a danger to themselves or someone else. And so we're here today to honor and recognize our psychiatric emergency response teams. The more than 70 of them that are funded throughout the county to respond to 911 calls. It is the combination of PERT plus MCRT plus our community care that is what is going to truly enable us to help individuals who are suffering from substance abuse or mental health illness. And during fiscal year 2021, PERT clinicians received 20,000 service calls. They conducted 23,000 community service contacts. They did tremendous referral and a whole bunch of work. And so even though there's been a lot of focus recently on mobile crisis response teams, I want our PERT teams to know how much we appreciate them and how much we value them and how integral they are to our combined response as we move forward in everything we do. And so I wanted to bring you here today and officially proclaim myself as chair and all members of the Board of Supervisors this 15th day of March that we commend our psychiatric emergency response teams for their significant contribution to the health and wellness of county residents, and do hereby proclaim this day as PERT Day throughout San Diego County. And we thank you for joining us today. Give them a round of applause.
Good morning, Chairperson Fletcher, Vice Chairperson Vargas, and members of the Board of Supervisors. Thank you for this wonderful honor. My name is Dr. James Diego Rogers. I'm the Senior Vice President and Chief Operating Officer for CRF, which is the parent organization for PERT. CRF is a San Diego-based nonprofit agency that exclusively serves the San Diego County community residents, almost 20,000 per year. CRF has been contracting with the County of San Diego Department of Behavioral Health Services for almost 41 years, starting with our first program, Turning Point Crisis Center, which was the county's first crisis residential treatment program. Today, CRF has 32 programs, including PERT, that are primarily funded by the county. Now I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Mark Marvin, PERT Division Director. Thank you once again for this wonderful honor.
Thank you, Diego. I first want to acknowledge Melanie Colaco, who's here representing all of our fine clinicians. By the way, Melanie is wearing the PERT uniform, if anyone was curious about how to identify a PERT clinician. I'll tell you, it's hard to believe that it was 25 years ago wherein community stakeholders convened, and the result is today we have PERT, which is a national best practice model, wherein a licensed clinician pairs with a first responder to provide a compassionate and safe intervention to those who are facing the ravages of severe mental health crises. As Supervisor Fletcher was saying, last year, our clinicians had over 43,000 clinical opportunities. I also want to acknowledge our training staff. PERT training on crisis intervention and de-escalation skills is considered the gold standard, and we are fully endorsed by the California Commission on Peace Officers and Standards. And on behalf of PERT, we sincerely appreciate this proclamation. I'll tell you, we received many reach outs from cities and advocacy groups across the United States and beyond who recognize the important role and critical role that PERT plays within the continuum of care. But I'll tell you also, to receive this appreciation here at home is very sweet. So thanks very much. Appreciate it.
All right. Come on, let's take a picture. You hold that. You don't want to say anything. Hold it. There you go. Wow, watch. TV. All right. Thanks. The second proclamation will be given by Supervisor Joel Anderson and myself, honoring serving seniors in the 50th anniversary of the National Senior Nutrition Program. Accepting the proclamation will be Mr. Paul Downey. You want to go first? Come on up. I'll bring your whole crew here. Come on up. Good morning.
How are you?
Good to see you. Good to see you. Good morning, my man. How are you? Good morning, darling. Good to see you. Good morning, young man. How are you? Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Good morning. Paul Downey doesn't travel light. Brought the whole crew out this morning. We welcome you all. Come on up. There's more. Come on up, sir. Let's make space for you right there. Well, we want to welcome this incredible group of San Diegans to the Board of Supervisors. It was just about 50 years ago, March 22nd, 1972, that President Richard Nixon signed into law a measure that amended the Old Americans Act of 1965 and established a national nutrition program for seniors age 60 and older. And for 5 decades, these critical programs have delivered more than just nutritious meals to homebound seniors. They have helped in virtually every community across the county. The dedicated staff and volunteers who deliver these meals each week provide a vital lifeline and a connection to their community and to our seniors. 10 million older Americans face hunger each year, and the National Senior Nutrition Program strengthens the safety net for adults at risk of homelessness. Here in San Diego County, 1 in 4 San Diegans experience homelessness is over the age of 55, and Both Supervisor Anderson and myself recently participated in the annual point-in-time count where we saw the stories and we heard directly, and it motivates us to continue to drive our board in new directions. The way a society cares for its elders says a lot about that society. The way we value your life, the way we work to protect your life, the value that we give to our seniors across the board, whether we're talking homelessness, nutrition, or public health, it says a lot about who we are as a people, and we're here this morning to lift up the work Serving Seniors is doing, commemorate the 50th anniversary of this important legislation, and know that the last few years have been challenging. It's been intense. Paul was asked to do some pretty incredible things in exponential growth in a rapid period of time, but time and again, folks stepped up. They came together as a community to protect one another and look out for one another, and so we're thrilled to be here today to honor Serving Seniors, National Senior Nutrition Day, and recognize all the incredible work you do. And I will turn it over first to my colleague, Supervisor Anderson, and then to Paul.
Thanks, Nathan. So Nathan said, would you like to go first? And I thought, you know, if I go first, then I'm going to have to say all those things. And I let Nathan go first, and then all I have to say is thank you. Thank you, Paul. Thank you to your team. I know from my constituents how much we appreciate, and we saw over the last 2 years a 245% increase in meals being served to people in their homes. And if you weren't there, those folks would have fallen through the cracks. And so I'm grateful to you. I'm grateful to your organization. And with that, Nathan and I would like to give you this proclamation. Nathan, I'm going to let you come back up and read the last paragraph because you do such a great job.
Thank you, Supervisor Anderson. Now, be it proclaimed by Chair Fletcher and all the members of the Board of Supervisors on this 15th day of March 2022 that they commend Serving Seniors National Senior Nutrition Program Day throughout the County of San Diego in recognition of this milestone, and through the leadership role of Serving Seniors San Diego are essential contributors to the protection of older adults throughout our region. Congratulations, Paul, and your whole team.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Chairman Fletcher, Supervisor Anderson, and the entire board. I'm joined, actually, this is the Serving Seniors Walking Group, and so to make you all feel guilty, they walked over from our site at 4th and Beach, and they're going to walk back before lunch. So I'm glad that they're all here to help celebrate. But I also want to acknowledge San Diego County, and particularly the Board of Supervisors, which is an Aging and Independent Services. Serving Seniors was the first senior nutrition program 50 years ago, shortly after the Older Americans Act was enacted. And we've been a contractor for 50 years. We've served over 14 million meals during that time. And as Supervisor Anderson noted, we had a 245% increase since the pandemic began. We've served over 3 million meals since March of 2020. We're on track by June of this year, for this fiscal year, to serve another 1.5 million. And our phones are ringing every day for more seniors who are looking for meals. I would say maybe the only good thing that has come from the last 2 years in this pandemic has been that more and more older adults have recognized the value of these meals, and so they receive them, and they're finding that there are the health benefits associated with them, and that has been the key throughout this program. We've got studies that show good nutrition for older adults, for folks with health challenges, and frankly, for all of us, is critically important to staying out of the hospital, out of the ICU, out of long-term care. And so these meals keep people in their homes and keep them healthy, able to enjoy their lives, as you can see by the walking group that has joined me. So this is something that Serving Seniors is proud of, but San Diego County and the Board of Supervisors should be very proud of as well, because it has been a 50-year collaboration. I suspect in 50 more years we'll be celebrating the 100th anniversary because this program is so important. So we're grateful for this recognition. Thank you to the board, and thanks to all of my friends who are with me this morning. Thank you.
You got to back up here and get a picture. You're going to have to back up into the well. All right, come on, crowd. Back up a little bit more. All the way back. Okay.
All right, smile, Ada. Okay, good. Can you in the front row just go down a little? Me? Yep, yep. We can't see the back people. Okay. You're fine. Just a little. There we go. Good. Good. Turn that a little for me. Okay, perfect. 2 more. Good. Good. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
Please stand on your tiptoes. You need to stand on your tiptoes. I'm sorry, did you see her standing on her tiptoes to be taller than you? No? Thank you all. Thank you so very much. Our next proclamation will be given by Vice Chair Vargas, honoring Nowruz. We'll turn it over to Vice Chair Vargas.
Good morning. I am so honored to present this proclamation recognizing Nowruz Day, which is celebrated on March 20th through the 21st by more than 300 million people around the world and is recognized by the United Nations as International Day of Nowruz. Nowruz is celebrated on the day of the vernal equinox and marks the first day of spring, and for millions, it's recognized as the start of a new year. It is celebrated as a secular cultural festival by the people of the Middle East, Central Asia, Caucasus, Black Sea Basin, and Balkans. Although celebrations have been muted and more virtual in the past couple of years, as spring begins to thaw and a new season and a brighter future for all of us. Let us become more aware of this beautiful tradition. A decorative halcyon table is placed in every home with an arrangement of elements symbolizing life, hope, strength, patience, health, and rebirth. I've seen them and they're beautiful, actually. Let us join our vibrant communities as they celebrate Nowruz and wish them a prosperous new year. Therefore, on behalf of Chair Fletcher and the rest of the Board of Supervisors, I would like to proclaim and recognize March 20th as Nowruz Day throughout the County of San Diego. There you go. Thank you. I love it the way you get to hug me. Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Mehdi Khalili, and I'm the president for the Middle Eastern Employee Resource Group, or MERGE. Nowruz is a universal celebration of renewal that coincides with nature's rejuvenation. It symbolizes self-reflection and celebrates new beginnings and love for all. On behalf of the Middle Eastern Employee Resource Group, or MERGE, and over 300 million people from diverse cultures and backgrounds around the world who celebrate Nowruz, we would like to thank Vice Chair Vargas and the Board of Supervisors for this Nowruz proclamation. We would also like to express our gratitude to county leadership, from the Board of Supervisors to Chief Administrative Officer Helen Robbins-Meyer, and to our executive sponsor, Sarah Agassi, for supporting Middle Eastern Employee Resource Group and our other employee resource groups. We invite you to join MERGE and other county employee resource groups and support us as a new member. Thank you.
Okay. You guys go all the way back, or just like me? Keep a little more. Perfect. His face is always right in the middle. Okay, that's really nice.
When she's done with the picture.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Over here real quick. Thank you. Over here, 1, 2.
For everything you do. No, public defenders.
Thank you, Vice Chair Vargas. Our next proclamation will be from Vice Chair Vargas and Supervisor Lawson-Reamer, honoring the San Diego County Public Defenders, and accepting the proclamation will be our Public Defender, Randy Mize. and members of their team. We welcome you to the chambers today.
We are so excited. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It is my honor to co-present this proclamation with my colleague, Vice Chair Vargas. It is really incredible to acknowledge the work that the public defenders do every day to ensure everyone in our region has a fair day in court. The San Diego County Public Defender's Office was established in 1988 to help provide legal representation to those without the financial means to counsel. As an attorney, I know that access to justice is an essential part of our system. Our office has done amazing work over the years. For example, programs like Fresh Start have helped give people a second opportunity at integrating back into society to help reduce our recidivism rate. Know Your Rights workshops have provided countless people with essential information. And programs like our homeless courts provide critical services to those most vulnerable in our community. I'm so excited about our nearly completed work under the leadership of Michael Garcia to start providing legal counsel, a right that is guaranteed to all under the U.S. Constitution for those facing deportation in our community. We continue to work together to create a more inclusive San Diego, and we all have a role to play. So it is my pleasure to honor our public defenders with this proclamation. On behalf of the San Diego County Board of Supervisors and my office, it is my honor to declare March 15th, 2022 to be San Diego Public Defenders Day throughout San Diego County. Let me turn the floor over to my colleague, Vice Chair Vargas. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Lawson-Remer. It's my honor also as well to proclaim this, recognize this day with you as well. And as it was mentioned, you know, the public defenders' work and the work that they all do is such important work that they do for our communities. Every day they maintain the integrity and fairness of the American justice system by providing the finest legal representation in the cases they are entrusted with. Rights, liberties, dignity. The attorneys who work at our county public defenders are some of the brightest, the best educated, and most dedicated lawyers committed to those three fundamental legal tenets. The majority of our public defenders never wanted to practice any other kind of law and have dedicated their careers to being public defenders because they are passionate and believe in what they do. Because being accused of a crime is one of the scariest things that can happen to a person and their family. Marginalized communities are the most affected by the criminal justice system. The dedicated attorneys in the Public Defender's Office give voice to the voiceless. The dedicated attorneys in the Public Defender's Office give voice to the voiceless, but they also make sure that the justice system sees their clients as whole people. The work is incredibly important and often unseen and underappreciated. The Public Defender's Office has worked to expand their services to include post-conviction relief, substance abuse disorder treatment, housing placement, mental health treatment services, nonprofit fundraising drives, and mentoring and training our local high school, college, and law students. We are so honored by the work that they do on behalf of the county. They exemplify the best ideals of public service. And so it is my honor with my colleagues to make sure that we proclaim and recognize March 15, 2022 as Public Defenders Day throughout San Diego County. Please join me in congratulating them.
Chair Fletcher, Vice Chair Vargas, Supervisors, today's board proclamation honoring your public defenders is not only a tremendous distinction, but also an inspiration for my colleagues and myself to go farther, to do more for the citizens of San Diego. As this proclamation points out, the San Diego Public Defender's Office has evolved well beyond our Sixth Amendment responsibilities. And while we continue to provide excellent representation, we have grown. we have become experts in finding appropriate dispositional alternatives to incarceration for our clients. Today, we emphasize and provide rehabilitation, a rehabilitation model that aims to return and integrate our clients back into society as productive San Diego citizens. This board has proved to be a game changer in our local criminal justice system. With your foresight and your funding, we now have substance abuse assessors, mental health clinicians, housing navigators, and mitigation specialists all working together to find solutions to successfully reintegrate our clients, who many suffer from addiction, mental illness, trauma, and homelessness. Our representation now continues after the criminal case is closed. We offer San Diegans comprehensive criminal record relief, expunging or reducing prior convictions, makes finding employment, obtaining housing, funding education, and other civic opportunities, again, possible for our clients. And we look forward to the next chapter, representing San Diego immigrants in federal court removal hearings. So, to the board, I say thank you, and thank you for your support.
Thank you, Randy, and thank you to your entire team. Thank you for being here. Our next proclamation will be from Supervisor Joel Anderson, honoring Down Syndrome Awareness Week.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming up. I'm honored to be presenting a county proclamation for San Diego's inaugural Down Syndrome Awareness Week. Down syndrome is the most common chromosomal condition. Down syndrome occurs when someone's born with an extra chromosome, and 1 in 700 babies in the United States has this condition. Early intervention, just like with anything else, can make a big difference in the quality of life for the individual that has the condition. The other thing is, as people age, they're more highly susceptible to experiencing mental and behavioral health challenges, dementia-related illnesses, as well as chronic disease and disabilities. It's important to bring awareness to the challenges that go hand in hand with Down syndrome and offer quality care, programming, and support for them in our community. And I want to thank the San Diego SEALs, our lacrosse team, the San Diego Regional Center, the Foundation for Development Disabilities, and the Home for Guiding Hands for their collaborative efforts to spread awareness. You know, people who have the condition have the same aspirations that everyone else in this room has, and we all share that. And so it's really important that we bring awareness to this so that they can have the highest quality life possible, as we would wish for anyone. I'm delighted to say, with the upcoming game against the Colorado Mammoth, our lacrosse team, the SEALs, will invite individuals and their families to have the opportunity to meet professional athletes while promoting their own skills in socialization, coordination, and healthy competition. I would like to, just for a moment, read the last paragraph here. It is proclaimed by Chairman Nathan Fletcher and the members of the San Diego County Board of Supervisors on the 15th day of March, 2022. that they commend Down Syndrome Awareness Week for its significant contributions in health and wellness of county residents, and do hereby declare March 15th through the 21st as Down Syndrome Awareness Week. This is culminating with World Down Syndrome Day on the 21st. And with that, I'd like to invite, gosh, it's right in front of me, Josh Gross up here from the SEALs, and then Sitara Sethi, CEO of the Foundation for Developmental Disabilities. So why don't you both come up here, and I'll just present this to you, and go ahead and speak.
Good morning. My name is Josh Gross, and I'm proud to be here representing the entire first place San Diego SEALs organization.
I want to hold something too.
There you go, nice. On behalf of owner Joe Tsai, team president Steve Govett, head coach and general manager Patrick Merrill, MVP candidate and leading goal scorer Wes Berg, our players and staff, thank you to Supervisor Anderson, the entire board, and the County of San Diego for raising awareness about Down syndrome and the developmental disabilities community. We're proud to partner with Foundation for Developmental Disabilities, San Diego Regional Center, and Home of Guiding Hands on this, the inaugural Down Syndrome Awareness Week here in San Diego County. Recently, SEALs players taught children with Down syndrome the game of lacrosse. And on Saturday, our players are honored to wear helmets designed by our friends who have Down syndrome, including this one designed by 7-year-old Leonardo. We're committed to bettering and enriching the lives of our fellow San Diegans and appreciate the work that our partners do every day. Thank you for recognizing Down syndrome awareness, and what a special way to kick off an amazing week. It's now my pleasure to introduce the CEO of Foundation for Developmental Disabilities, Sitara Sethi.
Thank you. Thank you to the Board of Supervisors. Thank you to the SEALs. Thank you to Home of Guiding Hands and the Regional Center. My name is Sitara Sethi, and I'm the CEO of the Foundation for Developmental Disabilities, and we provide funding to organizations that serve San Diego and Imperial counties with people with developmental disabilities. It has been such an exciting week, and we're just so excited to partner with the SEALs for this incredible event. It's happening on Saturday, so if you haven't got your tickets yet, please go online to sealslax.com and you can get tickets there. It's a wonderful, wonderful time to not only meet people with developmental disabilities, but also enjoy a home game with the #1 San Diego SEALs, and you know, just have a good dinner and just get to know what we're doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Let's do a photo.
No way.
Thank you. Thank you all very much for joining us. Thank you for all your work. Our next proclamation will be from Supervisor Tara Lawson-Reamer, honoring the Regional Task Force on Homelessness. Accepting this proclamation will be Tamara Kohler, their fearless leader, along with Ray Ellis, dedicated board member. Ray takes on all the easy tasks.
Good morning. It's my honor to present the following proclamation to the Regional Task Force on the Homelessness. Come. All San Diegans deserve access to a home. As a county, we are stepping up more than ever to tackle the root causes of homelessness. The Regional Task Force on Homelessness and its Continuum of Care Advisory Board work to provide policy expertise, regional coordination, and critically important data tools to promote evidence-based solutions. As the lead agency for the San Diego region, they are a true partner in helping government, nonprofits, businesses, and community come together to address homelessness. I commend the Regional Task Force for their commitment to building a better care system by addressing racial disparities among people experiencing homelessness. I had the honor of participating in the annual point-in-time homelessness count last month, not only as the county's representative on the Continuum of Care Advisory Board, but also as a resident and a mom deeply concerned about our homelessness crisis. As a fan of good data, I know how much time and effort goes into this count, and I want to thank the hundreds of volunteers who fanned out across the region to help us understand the current state of homelessness in San Diego County. It's my pleasure to officially welcome the Regional Task Force on Homelessness as an official Live Well partner. I look forward to working together closely with you in the months and years to come. So on behalf of the San Diego County Board of Supervisors and my office, it is my honor to declare March 15th Regional Task Force on Homelessness Day throughout San Diego County. We are joined by CEO of the RHTF, Tamara Kohler, who will be accepting this proclamation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, and it's an honor to be here. The Regional Task Force is excited to join the Live Well San Diego effort. Our organization serves as the HUD-designated regional continuum of care to address homelessness throughout San Diego. And in that role, we work through what is called a collective impact model, with multiple sectors throughout the county that intersect with the shared purpose of Lived Well San Diego. Individuals and families experiencing homelessness cannot be healthy, certainly are not safe, and definitely are not thriving without a shelter or a place to call home. We appreciate our longstanding partnership with the County of San Diego as a leader on the continuum of care, originally with Nick Mascione as our vice chair, and most recently of Chair Fletcher and Vice Chair Vargas serving as vice chairs as well. We're looking forward to working with Supervisor Lawson-Remer as our newest vice chair and appreciate the tremendous strides this board has made in investing in addressing homelessness throughout the county. I want to acknowledge our committed 31-member Continuum of Care board, the strong committees that have been formed to address issues, and our membership organizations. I also want to acknowledge my amazing board, of which our board chair, Ray Ellis, has joined me. Finally, I want to thank our dedicated staff and team at the Regional Task Force, who work tirelessly behind the scenes to support the work needed to be done. We, along with the county, share a driving singular goal and a commitment to addressing homelessness, that in San Diego, it needs to become rare, brief, and non-reoccurring. We look forward to our deepening work with the county and the Department of Homeless Solutions and Equitable Communities, and Barbara, their leader, that San Diego becomes a healthy and safe and thriving community with adequate shelter options and finally a place to call home for all those who are unhoused today, and connecting them to the services they need to stay housed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Good to see you both. Our final proclamation today will be from Supervisor Jim Desmond honoring Vietnam Vet Day, and accepting this proclamation will be Commander William Fry. Supervisor Desmond.
Good morning. morning. Glad to have you. Very well. Thanks for being here today. Do you have, we got other things? Come on up. Thank you very much. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm here honoring National Vietnam War Veterans Day. First, before I read this proclamation honoring National Vietnam Veterans Day, I'd like to ask that we all take a moment of silence and give our respects and remember the 58,220 Americans who gave their lives in defense of our country, our values, and in this war. So this morning, we have representatives from the Thomas F. Durbin, Chapter 70, Disabled American Veterans from Escondido. Commander William Fry, a Marine veteran, and he's the president of Chapter 70. We have Sandra Voice, a retired Navy veteran and treasurer of Chapter 70. Sandra, right there, okay. Charlotte Roger Jones, a retired Air Force veteran of 25 years and the vice commander of Chapter 70. And John Gonzalez, a retired Marine, the Vietnam vet and Purple Heart recipient. So we are grateful that you're here today with us this morning, and importantly, we want to say thank you for your service to the United States of America. As we celebrate, this is the upcoming, it's the 5th anniversary of the National Vietnam War Veterans Day on March 29th. We honor the 2.7 million U.S. service members who served in that war in Vietnam. We also commemorate the more than 9 million Americans who served from November 1st, 1955 to May 15th, 1975, and the 6 million who are still living today. So here in San Diego County, the Thomas F. Durbin, Chapter 70, Disabled American Veterans Post, represents one of the larger populations of veterans in San Diego County. And today we remind America, our family, and our friends of the upcoming 5th anniversary of the National Vietnam War Veterans Day. So we encourage San Diego citizens, every American, to show their gratitude to this generation of warriors for our nation's blood and treasure from a generation ago, for their service and sacrifice on this significant day. We encourage you to reach out to any Vietnam veterans you see who may be isolated, they may be living in remote locations, physically unable to attend events. Some of those are in assisted living, geriatric care, rehabilitative, palliative care, and unfortunately, maybe even homeless. This year, our national military leaders, along with the Vietnam War Gold Star family representatives, will participate in a national joint wreath-laying ceremony at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. on the morning of March 29th. So therefore, with the County of San Diego is committed to honoring and serving those individuals dedicated to the ideals of our republic, and the Vietnam War veterans, including the disabled American veterans, are the most worthy individuals. So therefore, be it proclaimed by all members of the San Diego County Board of Supervisors that on the 29th of March, we commend and honor our Vietnam War veterans and declare that day National Vietnam War Veterans Day throughout San Diego County. So with that, I want to bring up Commander Fry, if you'd like to say a few words. Come on up. You're welcome.
Okay. I'm going to put on my glasses here. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, honored guests, and County Board of Supervisors. The Disabled American Veterans, commonly called the DAV, and DAV Chapter 70 of Escondido are honored to accept this proclamation from the San Diego County Board of Supervisors. Our chapter is named after Thomas F. Durbin, U.S. Army, killed in action while engaged in combat against the enemy in the Republic of Vietnam. Today, March the 16th, 2022, we honor the memory and sacrifice of more than 58,000 Americans who died over 67 years ago in the jungles of Vietnam. We should also remember the 1,611 prisoners of war and missing in action left behind in 1975 when the war ended. We will not forget them. God bless them all. The DAV is dedicated to helping veterans obtain their medical benefits and compensation after leaving active duty in the military. It was founded in 1921 after World War I, so it is over 100 years old today. Or not today, but it's over 100 years old. Okay? It's still helping veterans every day. Disabled American Veteran Service officers are located in most hospitals, VA hospitals, and clinics across America. I want to thank the San Diego County Board of Supervisors, and especially Supervisor Jim Desmond, for issuing this proclamation. Semper Fidelis, that's the Marine Corps motto, and in Latin, it means always faithful. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Turn around, face the camera. Standing ovation.
Go ahead, that's fine. We'll come back this, yeah. Jim, can you go on that side? Or can I go that side? Yeah, that's fine. Okay, that looks nice. Good. Good. Okay, when you smile. Good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commander. Thank you very much for joining us here. We appreciate all of you. Thank you very, very much. Next on the agenda is non-agendized public communication. This is an opportunity for the public to address the board on matters that are within the board's jurisdiction, but were not on today's agenda. The only action the board may consider is a referral to the Chief Administrative Officer. A reminder, according to Rule 4A, members of the public who are non-English speaking and need interpretation assistance will be provided additional time to facilitate translation. According to the rules and procedures, we will hear from 10 non-agendized public speakers, 5 in person and 5 remotely. The remaining non-agendized public communication speakers will be heard at the conclusion of our agenda. I'll ask the clerk to please call forward 5 in person and 5 virtual speakers.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 49 requests to speak on matters not listed on the agenda, 27 in person and 22 by phone. For those that requested to speak by phone, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. We will begin with the in-person speakers. Again, I'll be calling the first 5 speakers, and as the chair indicated, the remaining speakers will be heard at the conclusion of today's session. As your name is called, please come forward and stand against the east wall under the murals until it is your turn to speak. You will have 2 minutes to address the board, and I'll ask you to please state your name for the audio record. I'd like to invite forward Alan C., Louis Uridel, Breanne Barker, Crystal Irving, and Brian Lafferty. If I've called your name, please come forward.
Hi, good morning, Alan C. It is great seeing the beautiful faces, no masks. I see you sporting a beard now, Mr. Potter, looking beautiful. We need a, yeah, I appreciate that. I bring a warning of what's taking place this November. In the light of inflation, $6 gallon gas, not 1, not 2, but 3 sales tax are on the agenda. 2020, MTS had a sales tax. They pulled it back last minute. My question is, why do they use our tax money, handing out bling and having workshops to bribe people to vote for the bus tax, for more empty buses? And yet, it's going to go back on the ballot this November. So watch out, people. Please watch out, because we are suffering here. We are suffering $6 gallon gas, and and to actually put more tax on the community with the library tax, with the bus tax, and there's a third tax, which I'm not very clear. Speaking of tax, you know, right now, the state of California is taking your home away from your children. Think about that for a minute. California is taking your home away from your children. Prop 19, backed by the firefighters union last November, fooled the voters, said it's for the firefighters. Even the firefighters will lose their home when their home gets reassessed to current market value when they die. Think about that. Unions, we love you guys, but look deeply, look in your hearts of what is happening when they're funding all these programs, be it the MTS union, the firefighters union, when they take it away from their own firefighters. Even the police unions, how many lost their jobs during this pandemic? For 2 years of this pandemic, businesses are suffering, and now there's 3 more taxes. Vote no on every tax, no matter what it is. Look at the gas tax. Because that Yes on 6 failed 2 years ago, 2018, look at the mess we're in now. We're averaging $2 per gallon. Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Lou Yerdell. I want to take a moment to recap and remind everyone what this San Diego County Board of Supervisors has done over the last 2 years, so we can objectively see if what you've done has made San Diego better or worse. You backed lockdowns and pushed a false narrative that it was necessary to save lives. You set up snitch lines so that residents can report noncompliance with the county. Where we have seen that before? You've encouraged business owners to force vaccines for workers, asking them to do your dirty work. You declared misinformation a public health crisis on information that has all turned out to be accurate. You declared guns a public health crisis, but no health crisis for fentanyl, which is the #1 killer of people aged 18 to 45. You declared San Diego County a sanctuary for murdering babies in a state where murdering babies is already widely accepted. But I guess you need to pander to campaign contributors like Planned Parenthood. You push to keep masks on, even failing to stand up for our kids in schools, despite all actual science, not just political science, that cloth masks don't stop the spread of a virus. They only promote political theater. I mean, maybe a good resolution before Nathan Fletcher to publish his stocks he's going to purchase based on agendas he's going to push. So that while locking businesses down, we could have made some money like you did, Nathan. I said it before and I'll say it again. Our politicians are two-bit hustlers. One hand washes the other. Midterms are around the corner, and we'll be taking our county back. Jim, I appreciate all you do for us. Let's go, Nathan.
Next speaker, please.
Good morning, Chair Fletcher and the Board of Supervisors. My name is Breanne Barker, and I have served this county for almost 17 years now. I've spent my entire career working for the Health and Human Services Agency, currently doing the important work of receiving, processing, and imaging applications and associated verifications for customers seeking CalWorks, CalFresh, and/or Medi-Cal public assistance. One issue we are working on that is especially important to me is wage increases that combat an 8% and rising inflation rate and landlords having and using the power to raise rents by as much as 10% annually. We don't just need fair wages, we need livable wages. In 2020, after the George Floyd case gained global attention, the county ramped up its diversity and inclusion initiatives. The county purports to continually seek ways to create an inclusive culture that embraces diversity so employees feel valued and fully engaged, to support a workplace and community that is healthy, safe, and thriving. Being paid enough to afford to live in the county we serve should be a top priority in this contract to back the aforementioned declaration. Please understand that part of the reason neighborhoods, schools, workplaces, social settings aren't as diverse and certain types of people are excluded from society is due to not only marginalized identities, but economic exclusion due to poverty wages. Economic inclusion matters. Economic inclusion should be prioritized and moved on swiftly as an arm of diversity and inclusion for those of us working hard to emerge from the margins. We're fresh off celebrating Employee Appreciation Day. We received countless emails of gratitude from various levels of leadership, up to and including our CAO. What better way to appreciate your labor force than to empower them with financial stability? Thank you for your time.
want to remind members of the audience, hey, I'm going to ask members of the audience, according to the rules of procedure, there is no cheering, there is no clapping, there are no outbursts allowed, and the rules apply evenly for all groups that are present. And so I'm going to ask members of the audience to please restrain yourself from violating the rules of procedure, and I appreciate your cooperation and help in this effort. Thank you. Next speaker.
Good morning, Chair Fletcher, Board of Supervisors. My name is Brian Lafferty. I'm a proud member of SAU Local 221 and a union steward. I have worked for the county for 9 years. I work for the Department of Child Support Services, and among the important work that I do is making sure our participants get their copies of their court orders to make sure documents are filed on time in Superior Court. And we are here because, to thank the board for your support of a contract that supports county employees and the communities that we serve. And as we face record gas prices and sky-high inflation, the stakes are high to get this contract right. Now, one issue that we are working on that is especially important to me is our wage increases that catch us up after being left behind for a generation. I remember 9 years ago when I first started with the county, I saw a coworker filling out a CalFresh application, and it's shameful that some employees make so little that they not only are eligible for CalFresh, but they have to rely on it to feed their families. And I have and I've seen far too many coworkers leave for other employers in other counties and out of state because the wages are too low here, especially for the county that we live in. And thank you for supporting frontline workers and our fight for a contract that benefits our county and the people who make it work. The time is now for a great contract. And thank you very much and have a great day, everyone.
Good morning, Chair Fletcher and Supervisors. My name is Crystal Irving, and I am proud to be the president of SEIU 221. As you can see, SEIU is in the house today, and you know why we're here. Contract negotiations, and because we have waited decades for a board that actually cares about its employees and the services they provide. And that day has arrived, and now is the time. I want to ask you to look at my union family and think about what these purple shirts represent. Hundreds of years of service to this county, our communities. Innumerable sleepless nights during COVID worrying about our physical health, mental health, and safety, and that of our families and coworkers. And the sleepless nights continue as all of us worry about the impact of inflation because too many of us are already struggling to make it day to day and week to week. I want to publicly say that we are pleased with the progress of this contract negotiations and the noticeable differences at the table as we discuss important issues like fair teleworking policies, shifting county culture, work-life balance, and so far, we've been heard. However, these upcoming weeks will be challenging. We know that a generation of neglect won't be resolved in one contract, but we are going to push you to find a way to deliver not just a good contract, but a great contract to support our members and allow them to succeed and thrive in their public service. I stand before you with thousands of signatures on our shared values petition. SEIU, along with county staff, agreed on these values, and our goal is to see to it that they are reflected in our contract. And I'll leave copies of these with the clerk. As you go through this process, I urge you to consider every day the dedication of our members, the hopes and the dreams that the SEIU members in front of you and the signatures on this petition represent. Thank you for supporting our members, and we look forward to continued great progress for a great contract at the bargaining table. Thank you. And Supervisor Anderson and Desmond, we hope to meet with you all as well. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now hear from those that requested to speak by phone. Again, we'll be hearing from the first 5 callers. The remaining callers will be heard at the conclusion of today's session. When it is your turn to speak, you will be unmuted and you will hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments after the beep. I'll remind the callers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. We'll begin with our first caller, and again, please state your name for the audio record.
Stevenson. Hi. Every time I see a giant pickup truck go past me, I think of a quote from Shrek. Do you think maybe he's compensating for something? I can't help but wonder that because a lot of people who drive giant trucks want to look like tough guys, and yet they act like betas when they complain about high gas prices. Recently, Florida Congressman Greg Stube blamed President Joe Biden for the fact that he paid $167 to fill his vehicle. Ignoring the fact that presidents have no control over gas prices, it's worth noting that he put 43 gallons in his Ford F-350 Super Duty, the biggest pickup truck Ford makes. Stube and the other rednecks who whine about this first world problem are welcome to trade in their gas guzzlers for more fuel-efficient cars if the cost of gas is hurting them so much. But considering the fact that those behemoths cost about the same price as a Tesla Model 3, a lot of those clowns are financially stable and they're just looking for something to bitch about. I'll touch on this more later when I speak out against item 22, but the gas tax is not the problem here. The problem is the fact that the oil corporations like Exxon, Mobil, Shell, Chevron, and others are taking advantage of the Russia-Ukraine conflict going on right now and artificially price gouging us, despite the fact that the cost of an oil barrel yesterday dropped over $30. So, all this fear-mongering about, oh, inflation, oh, the deficit. Where were you when gas prices were high under Donald Trump? Because I remember they were pretty high back in 2019. I did not hear a single one of you Let's Go Brandon dipstick complain about gas prices then. Let's be consistent. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now hear from the next caller.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. My name is Luis Montero Adams. My pronouns are he, him, his, and on behalf of the San Diego LGBT Community Center, I'm calling to ask that we schedule a vote to remove Commissioner Hodges from the Leon L. Williams San Diego County Human Relations Commission. We agree with Chair Fletcher and Vice Chair Vargas that the Human Relations Commission should create a code of conduct to hold members accountable for actions detrimental to the overall mission. But in this instance, we do not believe that this is an either-or situation. It is a yes-and moment. Commissioner Hodges' consistent verbal and written transphobic and homophobic comments cannot be given the opportunity to remain while there are debilitating legislative attacks taking place on the transgender community across this country. The Center and the LGBTQ community know far too well the impact and harm that anti-LGBTQ speech and policies can cause, which is why the Center was proud to receive an outpouring of support from our allies to have Commissioner Hodges removed. The letter we submitted to the Union Tribune received broad support from organizations and leaders representing labor, faith, CBOs, LGBTQ community, as well as members of the Human Relations Commission. We also agree with Chair Fletcher that Commissioner Hodges' comments were, quote, outrageous and an insult to the spirit and mission of the Human Relations Commission, end quote. We simply ask that you act on the values of the Human Relations Commission and the County of San Diego. Please schedule a vote and remove Commissioner Hodges from the HRC and support the creation of a strong code of conduct. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We'll now hear from the next caller.
Hi, my name is Carol Green, and I'm here today in my official capacity as the president of the California State PTA. We have more than 500,000 members throughout California and about 30,000 in San Diego County. The California State PTA is supporting AB 1690, which will ban the sale of tobacco filters and single-use cigar, nicotine, and cannabis electronic vapes. For more than half a century, these filters have caused a public and environmental health crisis that found renewed vigor in recent years as the tobacco industry began to sell electronic vaping products. This bill keeps Californians healthy, cleans our environment. Our planet is at a critical tipping point. Filters destroy our environment unlike anything else that we discard. They have toxic chemicals that are found in electronic waste, and they seep into our fragile ecosystems while also damaging individuals' health with hazardous smoke. This proposal will create a safer, cleaner world by eliminating the problems of cigarette waste and by preventing the emerging waste of single-source use vape products. California State PTA supports this because it is good for the environment and it is good for our children. I hope the County of San Diego will also support AB 1690 and consider the impact as they make local decisions regarding tobacco and cannabis products. Thank you.
Thank you. Now hear from our next caller.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. My name is Becky Rapp. I'm a parent and public health educator. I come here today to raise concerns regarding the border report published Monday, March 7th on Fox News, describing the grim reality of drugs flooding our county out of Mexico. This nefarious business model is bringing us an increase in violent behaviors on both sides of the border. I bring this to your attention as San Diego is not innocent in supporting these marijuana businesses. According to a Washington Post source who happens to be a marijuana dealer in Mexico City, stated, California imported weed dominates a booming boutique market in Mexico rather than marijuana from traditional local sources, and the demand for American weed has exploded in Mexico. Several hundred yards from the Tijuana border, Josh Bubeck, owner of the Urban Leaf marijuana business, estimates some 55% of his customers are Mexican nationals. He states, nobody is going to grow cannabis better than California probably ever. Back in Mexico, especially for younger smokers, the appeal is clear. You're showing this is what I'm about. I'm a badass. I got this from America. As a parent, this statement makes me shudder. Local marijuana businesses knowingly sell products marketed to youth, but only will admit to it when it's on the other side of the border. Sadly, this is what our local pot shops are about. Do we really need to produce more pot? No. I would say selling 55% of products over the border sends a clear message that we don't need to produce anymore. Please take this into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Now hear from our final caller.
Diane Ake. I am one of the co-founders of Reopen San Diego, and I wanted to support Supervisor Desmond in wanting to end the COVID emergency status in the county. Yesterday, Jennifer Tudor, MD, the Deputy Chief Medical Officer for the County of San Diego, gave a report to the COVID Response and Recovery Committee of the San Diego City Council, and she said that due to a low COVID case rate, low levels of severe disease, and a low health impact on the healthcare system, San Diego County community level is now rated at low. Based on Dr. Tudor's report, we are so lucky because we are now out of a state of emergency. The emergency is over and we need to celebrate. Now the county can drop its vaccine mandates for new hires. That will prevent a lot of discrimination. And after over 2 years, the Board of Supervisors can finally drop the COVID emergency status. Thank you.
Thank you. And Chair Fletcher, that concludes the request for non-agenda public communication this morning. Again, for the remaining callers that requested to speak in a matter not listed on the agenda, please hang up and call back at the conclusion of today's session.
All right, next on the agenda is approval of the Statement of Proceedings minutes for the regular meeting of March 1st, 2022, the San Diego County Fire Protection District meeting of February 8th, 2022, and the San Diego County Sanitation District of January 12th, 2022. Is there a motion to approve? So moved. Is there a second? Second. We have a motion by Vice Chair Vargas, seconded by Supervisor Desmond. Please vote.
Chair Fletcher, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
We'll now proceed with the formation of our consent calendar. Members of the public will be able to comment on the consent calendar after supervisors have had an opportunity to make any comments or remove any items. We will start with Supervisor Anderson. Are there any items you wish pulled or comments you wish to make?
Not at this time, thank you.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Yes, I have a couple comments and questions. So on items, let me look, sorry, get the number right. Items number 3 and 5. So I just had a question on those items for our CAO. There's the way it's written, it goes out as a 1-year. These food contracts go out as a 1-year contract, and then there's options to renew under both of these. I think one has a 3-year options and the other has 4-year options. I do know that we are in the process currently of developing food procurement sustainability guidelines in alignment with our framework for the future and the sustainability review that we adopted at our last board meeting. And I'm aware that there's a lot of work being done by the county staff to come back with sustainability food procurement guidelines to take into account board direction. So my question is, how will we ensure that when these options are renewed in the subsequent year, not for this term, but in the subsequent year, that the new sustainability guidelines that I imagine will certainly be adopted over the next year are binding on these contracts?
Thank you, Supervisor. First of all, let me just say that this contract will certainly have the policies that we have today, which is for food security, healthy, nutritious food, et cetera, et cetera. So all of that will be in the RFPs. But you're absolutely right. These are for 1-year contracts with option years. And in the recommendations, both on item number 3 and number 5, it allows us to amend the contract in future years to reflect changes in program, changes in funding, changes in service requirements. Anything that would come out in the policy work that's being done over this next year with our consultant Arup would allow us to then be amended into the subsequent contracts based on the language that you're approving today in these recommendations.
So we don't need to, we don't need to make any amendment to ensure that that's
no. What would happen is when we bring forward the policy for the food sustainability going forward sometime in this next year, then we would be able to incorporate those into the language into an amendment.
Great. That was my question. I'm just really obviously very focused on ensuring that all the aspects of our county operations advance our goals around sustainability. And there's no question that there's huge impacts on our local community and on our workers in terms of how we produce and procure food. And just really looking forward to making sure that across all of our operations and certainly in our food procurement, these sustainability values are reflected, and I don't want to miss any opportunity on that front. So as long as we're assured that that can happen when these contracts are amended next year, then I have no further concerns on this item.
Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor Lawson-Remer. Supervisor Desmond.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd like to pull item 12, vote on that separately. And on item 11, I have a comment. This is on the PACE program. Over the last several years, I've had several constituents, primarily seniors, reach out to my office regarding the PACE program, and many of those were in fear of potentially losing their homes. PACE program, I know it's had successes, and it allows homeowners to obtain financing for energy-efficient upgrades and then have it put on their tax bill, and they pay it in their tax bill every year. But if they get behind in their taxes, there's fewer consumer protections than you would if you had a mortgage. So what I'd like to do is ask staff, well, before that, Los Angeles, actually, they terminated their PACE program after years of criticism there, and the National Consumer Law Center also states that the PACE program has very few consumer protections, or not enough. So I'm not sure what the status is here in the county, if we've got good news, bad news, how many people are on the program, if we had any complaints. So I'd like to ask staff to come back with a report and an update to ensure the consumer protections are in place and people don't get the threat of their houses potentially being taken away if they can't pay their tax bill, and this is part of it. Some of them don't even have a mortgage, but they have this tax bill. So I think it's good overall, but we want to, I'll be supportive, but I'd like to get an update on how it's going in the county. And then item 12.
Thank you, Supervisor. Do you want to pull item 12, do you want to have a separate vote on consent on item 12, or do you want to pull it to be taken up as a part of the?
Well, here's what I want to do. I just want to, I'm okay, I'm actually, I know the advantages of teleconferencing, especially the hour and 10 minutes it took me to get down here in the fog, and how much gas that, I burned with that round trip. So I see the advantages of teleconferencing, but I don't see the link to the emergency. I think the emergency's over. So those are my comments. I'm going to be a no vote on item 12.
I understand, but you're comfortable if we just have a separate vote on consent? Okay,
that's fine.
Very good. Vice Chair Vargas.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. I just wanted to mention that also on item 11, that it is for commercial pace. It's not residential. So I just wanted to make sure.
That's for the extensions that we're
The
adding
item
today?
that we're looking at is commercial, not residential. So I don't know. You can ask for the
okay.
information, but I just want to make sure we clarify that because I looked into it as well when my team brought the information.
Okay, all right.
So, but we can look into the residential. I just want to let you know that item before us is related to commercial. The reason why I know that is because I wanted to ask a couple of questions to our CAO. I'm supportive of this item, but I think, and it's really important, I think, part of a toolbox to advance clean energy upgrades, and I'm really glad that the program expansion is going to include EV charging, seismic retrofits, and wildfire suppression. But I wanted to request staff to include more information on how community outreach, especially for underserved communities like those in the Healthy Place Index quartiles 3 and 4, are being done, and how we're collecting data to inform our program impacts. And also, if the program is intended to be helping advance AB 32 goals, I think it would be important also to understand what metrics are being used. And so if that could be also added, I would really appreciate that. Thank you. And with that, I'd like to make a motion to accept the consent calendar.
All right. I see Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to be asking for a report back on the PACE program, I also had a couple questions. So I figure, why make multiple report backs? It's just, so I think I'm very interested in this as well. I think there's a lot of interesting questions. It does look like there's not very many projects. So I'm just wondering how we can better integrate the PACE program into our overall regional decarbonization and green jobs plan that's going to be coming back in August as a tool to advance those initiatives. And making sure that this program is not happening in a silo. It seems a little silly to have it by itself. So just want to make sure it's in alignment with our regional decarbonization green jobs plan, as well as the sustainability plans that the departments have been developing.
So I think what I need to do is collect all of your questions and then incorporate them into the report back. But I do want to have one clarification because, and I'm going to need some help from my staff, but some of the programs that are included here are residential programs, and then the one is commercial. But I just want to make sure that I'm correct in that before.
That's correct. The item that we are taking action on today or requesting action on is a commercial program, but there are residential components to the program offered as well.
So I just wanted to make sure that, for the record, that we do have PACE programs for residential in there. For this one with the fig tree, it's commercial.
All right, thank you. Supervisor Anderson.
You know what, I just want to confirm that we're going to bifurcate the vote on item 12. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, we've got a motion by Vice Chair Vargas, seconded by myself. We'll take 2 votes on this, but first let's hear from our public speakers on consent.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 7 requests to speak on matters on the consent agenda, 9 in person and 7 by phone. Any members of the public that requested to speak on matters on the consent calendar by phone, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. We'll begin with the in-person speakers and begin with those in favor of items. As your name is called, please come forward and stand under the east wall under the murals until it is your turn to speak. I'd like to invite forward the following individuals: Bob Prokesh and Bob Cotton. And they'll be followed by individuals in opposition to consent items: Alan C., Audra, Luke Weingarten, Mary D., Lana Cotton, Mark Dorian, and Jason Robo. If I've called your name, you may please come forward and line up under the east wall. You may come forward in any order.
Good morning, board. Robert Cotton.
Nice to see you all here. Community Enhancement Neighborhood Reinvestment Program? Is that what we're talking about now?
We're talking about all items on the consent calendar, and if you could please identify the item that you're speaking about. Thank you.
I just wanted to ask you, please, if you could be a little more judicious in how you spend our taxpayer money, especially when it comes to community enhancement and neighborhood funds being dispersed. I understand that at the beginning of the year you have a dump truck full of money in the budget for those programs. And I'm not picking on Jim Desmond this morning, but you all have opportunities like Jim does today to allocate funds for your district programs. I just wondered, for instance, why are we allocating $80,000 to the Regents of California University? They get hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars from the governor himself. That's item 5. Why are we allocating $100,000 from the Neighborhood Reinvestment Program to Palomar Health Foundation? They're very well funded. Their vice president of philanthropy is paid $208,000 per year, and they are privately funded. Why are we spending on Vista Chamber of Commerce? They're well funded.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. And again, please identify which agenda items you're speaking on. Thank you.
Audra, 1 through 12. So I love how you, again, put these all in one section so that we can't really even address what's going on. So you want to reduce isolation with seniors, but yet you're creating it by these, mandates and whatnot. You want to dabble into foster care when it's corrupt. They do human trafficking. They're placing children actually in danger. So, I mean, you might as well fix the system before you give it any money. You want to prevent child maltreatment, but you're creating that because you saw these kids in mass. The kids can't even come out of mass yet. Adults don't even have to wear them. It's great. You're giving $10,000 to YMCA for fireworks, $80,000 to increase milk production. So milk fund for babies. Are those mothers going to be vaccinated? And you're going to give these babies that are unvaccinated, vaccinated mother's milk and possibly kill them? Probably. $50,000 for mobile outreach wellness vehicles. 2 of them, actually, 1 for 20 as well. These things you guys are using against us to make it seem like let's just have medical mobile units everywhere. And that's not abnormal. You want to do a Voters' Choice Act, which you want to say open and fair, transparent elections. Is that a joke? Because I mean, they never have been. So, and the fact that you have to be vaccinated even to watch the polls. I mean, so obviously that's going to be corrupt again. Small business program, you're using ARPA funds and CARES Act funds. Funny. Jim, you say you want to vote us out of an emergency. You realize all of those funds would no longer be available. Then you want to take and use property tax to help out your whole global climate crap. And it's kind of funny because then you put in solar and you wind up having to pay tax on it. So I don't really see how that's benefiting anybody but you guys. So yeah, if you guys want to keep us out of an emergency, realize that no funds will come in and you won't be able to spend them, Jim.
Thank you. Your time is up. Next speaker, please.
Mark Dorian. Audrey is correct when she says there's too many items, way too important to shove them all together like this, which is obviously intentional. The gas tax is a scam and obviously shouldn't ever be done. As far as the building fees go, the fire mitigation fees, there's a statement, the agency shall hold harmless any errors made by the county in collecting or transmitting the fees to the agency. Also, the FMF generates $200,000 in revenue annually. It's a business like every other subsidiary corporation in the United States, all the cities and counties, states. Then it mentions escheatment of unclaimed money in county trust funds, escheatment of unclaimed property tax refund money. It's always interesting when there's a word that I even don't understand. I'm very educated. So I looked it up, and it means when the county transfers the money, for instance, from the property tax refunds into the state, which is funny because I can't think of anyone except a few dead people maybe that would have died that would, unless you didn't inform them of their money, would not come and collect it. As far as the fire mitigation fees and such, the SDG&E requested of the CPUC that 90% of the liability, the money from them causing the fires, will be charged to the consumer. And the CPUC, Mike Aguirre mentioned that 4 or 5 of the members are chosen by Newsom. It's a scam that our SDG bill just got raised so immensely. 25% since last year. It was supposed to be 28% over 4 years, and something like 4.2% in the last year, but it was 7.8 officially. And looking at my last February bill, it's a quarter more. Such a scam.
Your time is up. Next speaker, please.
Luke Weingarten, I'm here to talk about agenda item 12. Thanks for having us back. It's been a while. We've been still coming down to all these meetings. We sit outside the front doors here, and we hold it down. I don't think there's any reason why you should discontinue having public meetings. It's nice to see some of you looking at me. The last 2 speakers, I noticed none of you really, well, there was glances here and there, but you're the supervisors. You're supposed to pay attention to us. So please have us back. That's the way to do it. We deserve to be heard. And that's all I have right now.
Next speaker, please.
Hi, Mary D. here. First of all, this is a beautiful room, and I just want to say teleconferencing does not do it justice. I am here for the teleconferencing option. I'm here today in person to ask you to vote no on continued teleconferencing. This item was originally allowed under AB 61 to assist running government business during the outbreak of COVID. On February 14, 2020, you enacted an emergency declaration which Chair Fletcher said would last for 7 days but could be extended to 30. We are now over the 2-year mark. All government entities need to stop the Groundhog Day renewal of powers and teleconferencing and return to normal operations. I do urge you to keep hybrid attendance for the public as an option to aid accessibility and more robust participation. But please end teleconferencing only. When an emergency no longer exists, ethical politicians do the right thing. This is your moment to prove who you really are. Lastly, I do want to in particular call out Nathan Fletcher and bring to your attention regarding the clapping issue. To paraphrase our founding fathers, we hold these double standards to be self-evident. You want to suppress our clapping and our First Amendment rights, but if you're going to apply the standard, you need to do it equally. You tell us, we the people, to be obedient and quiet while you yourselves enthusiastically clap during proclamations that you put forth and support. Either apply the standard equally or not at all. And thank you to your CAO who really pays attention. Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Good morning. My name is Lana Cotton, and I want to talk about item number 12. The lady before me said some of the same things, but here goes. Why? Why do you need to authorize a continuance of teleconference public meetings? On February 14th, 2020, the San Diego County Public Health Office issued a declaration of local health emergency. On that same day, the Chief Administrative Officer issued a proclamation of local emergency regarding COVID-19. That was 2 years ago, so I'm with Jim Desmond here. Many countries, including Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Ireland, UK, Romania, Hungary, and Switzerland, have dropped all or most of their COVID restrictions. Denmark, Sweden, and Norway even look to reclassify the virus as a disease that does not pose a threat to society. We are no longer in a health emergency. We must drop all COVID restrictions, including this continuance of teleconference public meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. As the next speaker is coming forward, I'd like to do a final call for Bob Prakash and Jason Robo.
Can I have that 35 also? Kidding. Hi, Alan C. Multiple things. It's pretty tight, compressed. The stimulus. We're talking about one of the items talking about stimulus. Little story about that chlorine. I sent you all an email showing the price of chlorine. A bucket of chlorine went from $99 to $199. Why? Look into it. Basically what happened there, again, stimulus. That chlorine, they had a fire in Louisiana last summer. They rebuilt the factory, but they could not hire workers. Why? Because of stimulus checks. And by doing this stimulus program you're talking about, you're doing the haves and the have-nots, be it business, homes, whatever. You're basically deciding who gets the advantage, who does not. Stimulus is not the answer. Concerning the going to Zoom meeting only, we have finally got to see everybody's beautiful faces here, as I mentioned earlier. We need to keep that. You're going against the Brown Act. A lot of people cannot use the internet, do not have the techie to do that, do not want to call. We want to come in person. Yes, Jim, I don't want to drive down there and waste $10 worth of gas just to get down there, but it is important. This is our public duty. This is your duty and our duty, well, to be heard and speak and sort this stuff out and make stuff happen. So please look into that, and I'll talk about the gas tax in the next one. Thank you so much.
Next speaker, please.
Hello, Jason Robo. Yeah, I think it's totally horseshit that you rolled all the agenda items together so we can't comment on everything. I consider that to be pretty shady. But yeah, thanks for having no meetings in person for a few months, you know, because then I don't have to be exposed to your viral shedding and maybe catch the Fauci fever. I'm supposed to be talking about San Diego fire donation. I probably submitted more, but I didn't know what you're going to do with the agenda. You butchered it first, so. But yeah, if you care about fire, something you could research if you actually ever pay attention and think for yourself is silviculture. It's what the indigenous people practice here, and that's why there are all these nice meadows and things when people showed up to colonize the so-called Americas. And yeah, it prevents fires, and it would also increase border security. I have a friend from college who was an expert in it, so if you need somebody, I got a reference. Anyways, and yeah, I think the teleconference hybrid is a good option, but yeah, I think it's pretty cowardly what you've been doing. Nathan, your history as a Marine, you might know that you guys have been paired, obviously, with the Navy. I don't know if you were ever on a vessel, but I think you would be on the USS Censorship. Oh no, don't laugh. You can only talk during a proclamation or cheer then, I guess, which shows the double standard that these guys are notorious for. Yeah, so it's all a crisis for money. Oh yeah, speaking of crises and stuff, Gulf of Tonkin showed that the reason we went into Vietnam was bogus, and yeah, more vets have killed themselves than died over there, so that shows how much we support the troops and how we abuse them. Yeah, and then it was all about opium. They were sending bodies back with opium and heroin and stuff in them, and you guys pretty much do the same thing, piggybacking on COVID body bags to slang your vaccines. And some would say these opinions are radical, but yeah, radical means root, just like radish, and I'm getting to the bottom of things, unlike you, which you want to be on the surface level and lie to us all.
Thank you. We'll now hear from those that requested to speak by phone. When it is your turn to speak, you will be unmuted and you will hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments after the beep. I'll remind the callers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. We'll begin with our first caller.
Consuelo. Speaking on pace. Being healthy, natural, self-sufficient, spiritually connected, and independently educated is one of the biggest forms of rebellion against the system that wants you weak, brainwashed, filled up, obedient, and unconscious. Fear elites, transhumanists, eugenicists, and psychopaths. We are sovereign humanity. We are awake. We know what you have done to us for the last 2 years. Some of us know what you have done to us for the last 100 to 1,000 years. Your fear tactics don't work. There will be no world war to cover up your crimes. You will face justice and judgment, love, awake, and sovereign humanity. Your money is fake. Your food and water are being poisoned. All of these wars are based on lies. Your country is run by a bunch of pedophiles, and you're all too distracted by the bullshit to do anything about it. Wake up, San Diego. Wake up, world. That's all I got.
Thank you. We'll now hear from our next caller.
My name is Truth. Item 6, Palomar Health Foundation getting $100,000. They already received a $1 million donation towards their center, and basically they just want to use it as a PR propaganda entity, paying probably people like Anthony Fauci to spew their nonsense to the community. So that's a joke. And let's see. As far as the appointments, item 13, Natasha Wong, she's from the rich deceased Dennis Avery, his stepdaughter, from the Denison Avery Label Corporation fortune. She seems to have enough money, which goes against the board's equity agenda, and is only being offered this job for her connections. I also say no to lawyer Kimberly Howat to the Library Board of Trustees. She has a position on the Fund for Justice Committee, which claims to focus on helping women, but actually was founded by a man and has no problem advancing the status of men as long as they say they're a woman at the point of contact. They literally write in their statement of purpose, women with an asterisk. They also have anti-racism resources on their website that link to terrorist groups like Black Lives Matter. And I should say that their extremist organization is, their corporate sponsor is STG&E. So no to that, and no to Kenya Taylor, the Valle de Oro Community Planning Group. She's an extremist of the La Mesa Foothills Democratic Club. And she actually spoke at the same event as Nathan Fletcher. In her own words, quote, "I was just contacted by the County of San Diego about 2 weeks ago asking me to continue to be one of the co-chairs for the Behavioral Health Work Group in the East. Yes, I believe in reparations. Giving people free education, that's great. At the same time..."
Thank you. Your time is up. Thank you. And Chair Fletcher, that concludes public comment on the items on the consent calendar, which again are items 1 through 14, as well as the items on the San Diego County Fire Protection District and the County of San Diego Sanitation District.
Thank you. Just want to thank San Miguel Fire and Rescue. Item number 1 is the fire district donating a 53-foot mobile trailer. This can be used to train firefighters to move in tight crawl spaces with no visibility while wearing full gear and a breathing apparatus. The county appreciates this donation and will continue to train our region's firefighters. I had the opportunity to spend a little time at San Miguel Fire Rescue and appreciate Chief Brainerd and the entire team and staff out there and appreciate their partnership in this effort. And also want to highlight item 7, our democracy is strongest when most people participate. In this item, we'll authorize our registrar of voters to accept state funding for the Voter Choice Act and allow them to provide better support to voters, strengthen voter accessibility, especially in underserved communities and rural areas of San Diego County. And I think this will help us as we move forward. With that, we have a motion by Vice Chair Vargas, seconded by myself. The first vote we will take will be all of the consent items minus item 12. Minus item 12. We have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Chair Fletcher, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
Second item we'll take will be a motion by Vice Chair Vargas, seconded by myself, to approve item 12 on consent. Please vote.
Chair Fletcher, that motion passes with Supervisor Anderson and Supervisor Desmond voting no, all other supervisors being present and voting aye.
All right, we will go into our agenda item today. We will start with agenda item number 15. This is an item brought forward by Vice Chair Vargas and myself. I will turn it over to Vice Chair Vargas first.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. I know that we're going to have a time certain with the State Auditor, Mr. Tilden. Are we going to have him do the business? Oh, sorry. Okay. Apologize for this. So I just wanted to say that I'm really looking forward to the presentation, and today I think we're going to have an opportunity to hear from them. So why don't I go ahead and wait until the presentation, and then I'll go ahead and make my comments.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Pleased to bring forward item 15 alongside Vice Chair Vargas. The recent state auditor's report on deaths in San Diego County jails confirmed what we already know. There are some things that need to change in our approach to protecting those who come into our custody and care. Today's action is a step for us as a board. The proposal would have us embrace and accept the findings of the report and also direct our legislative team to support appropriate legislative measures. I also want to highlight and know that Under Sheriff Kelly Martinez and Paul Parker, the acting director of CLERB, are committed to enacting necessary changes to help us provide the highest level of service and support we can. I think what we're doing today shows the board is supportive of their efforts and recognizes the urgency required on all of these issues. And with that, I would like to introduce Acting California State Auditor Michael Tilden for a brief presentation and let you know, Mr. Tilden, you and your team, we appreciate all of your work. We'll turn it over to you now.
All right, good morning, Chair Fletcher and members. Just for the record, I am Mike Tilden. I'm the Acting California State Auditor, and thanks for having me this morning talk about the report that we put out about a month ago. Basically, the Joint Legislative Audit Committee asked us to conduct an audit of the San Diego Sheriff's Department, really for two primary purposes. One is to figure out why so many individuals have been dying in the San Diego County Sheriff's Department's custody, and secondly, to determine what corrective actions the Sheriff's Department has taken in response to those deaths. So just to set the stage, one of the first things that we did during the audit is we gathered data from the State Attorney General's office on the number of deaths in San Diego County's detention facilities. And over the last 16 years, there have been more than 200 deaths in San Diego's facilities. And that includes 18 deaths just in 2021. And that's really the second highest number of in-custody deaths in the state, behind only Los Angeles County, which obviously has a much larger average daily jail population. One of the other things that we did, though, is we looked at the death rate in different counties, where we looked at the number of deaths in relation to their average daily jail population. And when we sort of normalized the data in that manner, the number of deaths, or the death rate, I should say, in San Diego County jails was the highest of all county sheriff's departments in the entire state. So obviously, the next step we did here, in light of this, alarming rate of deaths in San Diego County jails, is we tried to figure out what's causing this. And in order to do that, we looked at a sample of 30 deaths that have occurred over the last 15 years in San Diego. And in doing that, we looked at the detailed case files, we reviewed video surveillance in these 30 different cases, and we found a number of causes of these deaths. Number one, we found that the San Diego County Sheriff's Office has been conducting inadequate, basically procedures at intake when they're booking individuals into their jail. They haven't been doing a good job of identifying these individuals' medical issues and mental health problems. And because of that, they're not always making sound decisions on where these individuals should be housed and whether or not they need some sort of follow-up care. So related to that, for those individuals that do have mental health issues or that did have medical problems, the Sheriff's Department didn't do a good job of making sure that those individuals got prompt follow-up care. And in terms of the 30 cases that we looked at, we found that these breakdowns really had some significant bad effects. For example, in 8 of the 30 cases, we found that the Sheriff's Department really didn't identify these mental health problems, medical care issues of individuals that were booked into the jails. And in 5 of those cases, those individuals died within less than a week of being booked into the jail. We also found situations where there were individuals that were complaining about medical issues or were requesting to see someone for a mental health issue, and they didn't get connected to doctors promptly. And in a couple of cases, they ended up dying before they received any follow-up care. for the medical issues or mental health issues that they were complaining about. Another key breakdown that we found is that in San Diego County jails, as well as other jails in the state of California, the sworn officers are required to do hourly safety checks, where they have to go around and go through the facility and basically check on the health and safety of every incarcerated individual to make sure that they're alive, they're not in distress, everything's okay. But when we looked at the video surveillance, we found that in San Diego, there were many times when the sworn officers would walk by cells and not even break their stride. They'd make a passing glance into the cell at the individual and move on. And we found situations where the officers would conduct these cursory checks every hour on the hour, and then 4 or 5 hours later, somebody would realize that you had an individual that was unresponsive and had actually died hours before, but nobody noticed. And again, that's because in many cases, these safety checks were cursory checks and they were not robust enough. The other thing we found is that there were situations where there were unnecessary delays in San Diego sheriffs, their sworn officers, and their medical staff providing medical care when different things happened in the jail. In other words, we found situations in our 30 cases, about a third of the cases, where an incarcerated individual had some sort of a medical emergency, and we found that sworn staff and the medical personnel were just slow to respond. They were slow to provide life-saving procedures, and in some cases, some of those individuals died, and potentially had they received these life-saving measures sooner, they may have survived. We looked at other counties too, and we did identify some best practices that we thought San Diego could employ. For example, in Riverside County, they require a mental health professional to evaluate every individual at intake. San Diego doesn't do that. It's one of our recommendations. We think San Diego should begin doing that. We also found that at the state level, the State Department of Corrections, they have a robust policy that really clarifies what their officers should be doing when they conduct safety checks. And it very clearly says that when these safety checks occur, the officers really need to ensure that each incarcerated individual is alive and well and is actually breathing. Another breakdown we found here is that at the state level, there's the Board of State and Community Corrections, and we found that they're part of the problem too, in that they're responsible for setting these minimum standards for the treatment of incarcerated individuals at jails throughout California. But they see those standards as minimum standards, and they're relying on the county jail systems to develop more robust policies, but we found that doesn't always happen, and certainly didn't happen here in San Diego. The other thing we looked into is once we identified some of the key breakdowns that we thought were leading to this high level of deaths in San Diego's facilities, we looked at what the Sheriff's Department is doing in response to these deaths. We looked at the different investigations and reviews that they conduct after someone dies in one of their facilities. And what we found by and large is that these reviews are really insufficient to really flesh out meaningful corrective actions. In other words, even though they do have different reviews that they conduct, they're inadequate in that oftentimes they're not documented, they're not made public, so the results are not transparent, and most importantly, they don't identify changes to policies and procedures that could prevent these types of deaths from occurring in the future. Related to that, we found that there are a number of external entities, including the county grand jury, a suicide prevention consultant, and the Citizens Law Enforcement Review Board that have brought forward recommendations to the San Diego County Sheriff over the years to correct some of the problems that I just talked about, but the sheriff has been slow to implement these recommendations. So lastly, I wanted to talk about the Citizens Law Enforcement Review Board that I just alluded to, or CLRB. As you know, the San Diego County voters approved this oversight entity back in 1990, and one of their key charges was to investigate in-custody deaths. But we found that CLRB has really failed to provide adequate oversight of deaths in sheriff's departments' jails. For example, their oversight, it really isn't independent. Basically, what CLRB's investigators are doing is they are reviewing evidence that's provided by the sheriff's department from their own internal investigations. Secondly, they very rarely independently interview any witnesses, whether it's the sworn officers or any other witnesses, and they also don't visit the initial scene of the death. The other problem we found is that their investigations are not timely, and that's in part because they haven't prioritized conducting investigations of in-custody deaths, and because of that, they failed to investigate nearly a third of the deaths that have occurred in San Diego County's detention facilities over the last 15 years, and that's to the tune of 57 in-custody deaths that CLRB did not review. Lastly, we found when they do conduct reviews, they're often not very thorough. When we went through the case files, we found that sometimes there were discrepancies in the case file notes, and the investigators just really didn't do a good job of following up on those discrepancies. So given all that, given this high rate of deaths that we're seeing in San Diego County's jails, the fact that the high death rate has continued through 2021, and the fact that San Diego's responses to date have really been inadequate, and the fact that there also is sort of a lack of effective oversight of these deaths, we developed some recommendations for the California State Legislature to really push the San Diego County Sheriff to make some important changes to rectify some of the problems that I talked about. So one, we recommended that the legislature change state law to require the sheriff to strengthen its intake procedures, to require mental health professionals to be on site and to be involved in the intake process, to do a better job of identifying individuals with mental health needs that would better inform their housing assignments and service needs. We're also recommending that the legislature require the San Diego Sheriff to do a better job of providing timely follow-up care for individuals that have mental health issues or medical problems. And also, another fairly obvious recommendation that we had is legislature should require San Diego, like Riverside County has done, and like, the State Department of Corrections has done, to modify their policy and to train their sworn officers to do more thorough hourly safety checks to really ensure that when they do those things, they're not cursory reviews, that they're really ensuring that individuals in their custody are alive, well, and breathing when they do those safety checks. And lastly, we recommended that the legislature require the Sheriff's Department to improve its investigations of in-custody deaths, to do a better job of determining why those deaths occurred, and to do a better job of developing recommendations for improving their policies, procedures, and practices to minimize future deaths from occurring downstream. We also recommended that the Sheriff's Department do a better job of documenting those investigations and providing more transparency by making the results and the recommendations available to the public. That's basically, in a nutshell, that's what we found. Those were our key recommendations. At this point, I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tilden, and thank you to the auditor for all of your work. Let's go first to Vice Chair Vargas, and then I think we'll hear from the public speakers, and then come back to the board. So if you can hang out for a few minutes, there may be some questions for you. Vice Chair Vargas.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher, and I wanted just to say thank you, Mr. Tilden. We had a very thorough conversation, and I wanted to say thank you for presenting this audit report, and the presentation today, I think, sheds light on a persistent and deeply troubling issue that many of our families here in San Diego have been facing, when so many folks, families of people who have died in San Diego County jails have been asking for accountability and change for years. The California State Audit provides the tool to make that change a reality, and for me, I think the audit does two things. It really identifies systemic issues within the Sheriff's Department and identifies and provides CLRB recommendations to address those issues clearly. And so with this board letter, we have an opportunity today to not only call on the state government to change the law to ensure that the Sheriff's Department follows through with implementing the audit's direction, but it also takes the necessary action to implement the state auditor's recommendation to address the risks to inmate safety, as well as to direct our CAO to work with CLRB to implement any changes in policies and procedures as directed in the audit report, as well as to accept the findings in the audit as well. And so, for me, it's really important. I've been working since day one to ensure that we're protecting the health and well-being of all of our citizens, and it's really important to me that we provide that same consideration for people in our care and in our custody. And transparency and accountability is important for every one of our entities. And so I'm happy to be presenting this board letter with the chair, and I would like to make a motion to accept this report. And thank you again to our state auditor for such a thorough presentation.
Thank you, Vice Chair. So we got a motion by the Vice Chair, seconded by myself. Let me have the clerk call forward our public speakers, and then we'll come back to the board.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 11 requests to speak on item 15, 5 in person and 6 by phone. Also note for the record that we received 2 e-comments, both in favor. Any members of the public that requested to speak on item 15 by phone, please dial in to the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. We'll begin with the in-person speakers on this item. As your name is called, please come forward and stand against the east wall under the murals until it is your turn to speak. I'd like to invite for the following individuals. We'll begin with those in favor, followed by those in opposition. Rosalinda Chandelaris, Jennifer Alonso, Naomi Silva, followed by Audra and Jason Robo. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board. I'll ask you to please begin by stating your name for the audio record.
Hello, my name is Naomi Silva, and I am a member of SEIU Local 221. I've worked for the County of San Diego for 6 months. I work as a nurse in the San Diego Central Jail. Although I have only been with the county for a short time, I have worked with vulnerable populations for over 14 years. While the state audit results truly sadden me, they do not surprise me. Working overnights at the county's busiest jail, I have seen firsthand the environment that has been created with years of critical staffing shortages and mandatory overtime among the healthcare professionals and the sworn staff. This is where it connects to our current contract negotiations. Now is the time for change so we can recruit and retain healthcare professionals who are resourced to provide quality care. Care that is proactive and not reactionary. Care that San Diego County can be proud of. Thank you for taking action in this critical issue facing our community.
Next speaker, please.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. My name is Jennifer Alonso, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker and a proud member of SEIU Local 221. I've worked for the county at the San Diego jail for about 3 years. I'm here today to discuss what I've witnessed with my own eyes as an employee within the jail. Firsthand, I want to address firsthand the concerns that have been identified in the jails as problematic and catastrophic, also highlighted earlier in the state audit. The first and foremost is the lack of quality and comprehensive medical and mental health services. At this time, as my job as a qualified mental health worker, I am asked to see patients through a cell, through a window. The jail has not provided us a confidential or safe space to thoroughly assess and interview patients. We are left to see them through a door and a window, having to ask them invasive and private questions within earshots of other people. How important can quality care be if we're not given at least a quiet setting to thoroughly evaluate individuals with sensitive needs and trauma? Additionally, our clinic list of those individuals who have been identified with mental health concerns are staggering. As of yesterday, Central Jail had a total of 298 people waiting to be seen by clinicians. George Bailey had a total of 474. Not to mention the patients who would greatly benefit from medications. It can take weeks for somebody to see a psychiatrist. Currently at Central Jail, there are only 2 psychiatrists able to prescribe for a total of 823 inmates. It's impossible. Lastly, we have no mental health worker when clients are coming in during intake. I have seen patients with long histories of mental health.
Thank you. Your time is up. Next speaker, please.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Rosalinda Chandarlis. I am a mental health clinician, licensed marriage and family therapist at Vista Detention Facility. And I am here, first of all, I want to start off saying, you know, we as providers, and most of us as medical providers, take an oath to every day do no harm. And it feels like this audit is as a result of a lot of harm being done. I have been at Vista Detention Facility for the past 6 years, and I've seen the beginning of us not being wanted or received in a detention facility, and slowly but surely seen some progression. However, the progression isn't enough. That's why this audit is obvious in our face. I want to mention that we talk about transparency and we talk about accountability. Whose accountability and where's the transparency? I want to make sure that we talk about what's in Chapter 1 of the state audit. It states, the department has not implemented key recommendations from external entities related to incarcerated individuals' welfare and safety. San Diego Grand Jury 2016, Lindsay Hayes, which I was a very big part of that study, Disability Rights 2018 talk about how nothing has changed, things have gotten worse. And yes, they have. As my counterpart mentioned, we are not necessarily given the confidentiality that we need so that inmates can feel confident to talk about what's going on with them from a mental health standpoint. As a mental health professional, it is imperative that I do no harm, that I do the best that I can. However, I cannot do my job if I do not have cohesion, collaboration with sworn. And it is very important for us to all work together and collaboratively so that we can make positive change. I'm here to support the union and to be an advocate for what's happening in our jail system and to make it better. Thank you.
Thank you. As the next speaker is coming forward, I'd like to do a final call for Jason Robo and Sierra Gant.
Audra, so it seems kind of like a problem as far as what people are actually in there that are dying. It seems to be mental health problems. So why are they being housed there, first of all, if they're not even, you don't have the staff to adequately take care of them? But first of all, I mean, we know that the sheriff's department is corrupt. The jails are corrupt. The sheriff's department bring in drugs to the jails and the prisons, and that's seriously a problem. If we look at Gore's legacy, we can see why this is happening. I mean, the sheriffs here assault people like Mr. Ramos over there, or they arrest people for clapping and take them into a jail. So for me to see that and then wonder why all these people are ill and have mental issues or being put in there, it's because they're not doing their job right, or you don't have the facilities to house these people. And who's going to be responsible for all of those deaths? I mean, you know, if I was negligent and somebody died, I'd be held accountable for it. So who's going to be held accountable for all of these people that have died? Nobody? It's just, oh, whoops, we didn't do a room check, we didn't do our job. I mean, if they can't do their job, they shouldn't even be in the jails like that. But you need to really think about what kind of people you're putting in there, and if they actually deserve to be put in there, if it's like a death sentence for them just to go, because they can't ever get adequate care. I mean, it's pretty ridiculous. But I also wanted to say, because the last thing I didn't get to finish on those 12 items was that you're taking property tax and trust fund money and putting it in the state fund. So you're just taking money from people that's unclaimed. It seems like your guys' name of the game. Take more money. I love it.
Next speaker, please.
Jason Robo. Yeah, so I was locked up for bogus charge Cop lied, said I had a concealed weapon when I reported being attacked by a hitchhiker. Terrible experience. And a yellow journalist named Kevin Hoover wrote a ridiculous story about it in Arcata with a bunch of corrections. Anyways, in that experience, I was in jail for 5 days waiting to get out on my own recognizance because I don't have a record. And it was a weekend, so it extends the 3 days to 5. And I was living on a small farm at that point, so I wanted to eat fresh, healthy food. So I fasted, and it was funny because when I was getting released, I had to see a healthcare worker because I wasn't eating. I thought they were letting me out, but I was still waiting for that. Anyways, her name was Joy, which I thought was really funny and poetic in a way. But yeah, mental health is a huge issue with the jails being overpopulated. And yeah, the food in the places are terrible. Like I said, I didn't eat it. And I like to say about the society, it's even worse in jails. When eating, as far as eating healthy is concerned, we've literally tossed the salad. And yeah, there's also Bob Barker industry, I guess, basically is a parasite of the prison industrial complex, and he's a total piece of crap. A great film to watch just about the food systems called They're Trying to Kill Us. It was suppressed, but you can find it online. And then PTSD, there's a lot of PTSD, not just from the prisoners, but also for the guards, because it is not good psychically for either of them, psychologically. Rick Doblin from the MAPS organization, they talk about this kind of stuff. And yeah, mental health, like I said, is a big issue. And really it all comes down to, you know, the origin is police, which get paid way more in guards than teachers do, shows our priorities. There's a great song from KRS-One, The Sound of the Police, and he talks about officer coming from the term overseer. And so basically this is all slavery, like the 13th Amendment. The war on drugs just shows slavery metamorphosed into something else, or as I like to say, it's just a niggerette patch.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll now hear from those that requested to speak by phone. When it is your turn to speak, you'll be unmuted, and you will hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments after the beep. I'll remind the callers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. We'll begin with our first caller.
Good morning. My name is Yusef Miller. I'm with the Saving Lives in Custody campaign of 2020. We've been lobbying and working with families to address the high in-custody death rate in San Diego County. And our goal was to work for an independent state audit and to address these lives in custody. The audit report released in February 3rd is a great addition to all of the data that we have that law enforcement, especially the sheriffs, dealing with the community incarcerated is a problem. But we need the supervisors to implement the audit report and its findings so that we can make a dent in this tragedy. These lives have been lost for a very long time. The community has been screaming for a very long time. And we as Saving Lives in Custody campaign have been supporting these families and hearing these tears, which went unheard all the way up until this report is here. So now let's do the right thing and make sure that we provide legislation, ordinances, and charters to affect the Sheriff's Department and bring some humanity back to our incarceration system. And with charter changes to strengthen the CLRB, the Civilian Law Enforcement Review Board, to give them more strength and give them more power to do their investigations and improve their reforms as well. In conjunction with this audit report, Andrea St. Julian from the San Diegans for Justice had a report from Dr. Fairley from the University of Chicago, which went in more detail for the CLRB reform. Please consider that along with the audit to make sure that we make these reforms that will save lives in custody. These family members deserve something that will be in black and white, something that is tangible, something that will make sense so no other family goes through this same issue. They are real people. Every single life that was lost in custody.
Thank you. Thank you. Your time is up. We'll now hear from the next caller. For the next caller is identified as Consuelo.
Hello. Hello. Hi.
Please proceed.
Are we on agenda 16?
Item
Hello?
15. Item 15, please proceed.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was calling for agenda 16.
We'll come back to you. We'll hear from the next caller.
Hi, good morning. My name is Judith Howell. I'm a resident of District 4 and calling on behalf of Planned Parenthood Action Fund of the Pacific Southwest. Thank you, Chair Fletcher and Vice Chair Vargas, for bringing this letter forward. The state report said that from 2006 through 2020, 185 people died in San Diego County jails. One death inside the jail was already too much. Concerns have been raised by the public for years, including from the ISDF Coalition and county healthcare staff. So many people could have been saved if the county and sheriff intervened sooner. The most vulnerable in these jails have been left to die because of lack of resources and investment from the sheriff's office. The current environment will continue these violent and negligent acts and will continue to endanger healthcare staff who are there to take care of the people inside the jails. We must have reforms to prevent abuse and to protect people who are incarcerated. Providing mental health care for incarcerated people must be prioritized. Healthcare staff must be given proper resources to take care of the people who are incarcerated. This is long overdue, and this must be prioritized. And the families deserve accountability, and they deserve an apology. Thank you.
Thank you. We had an individual request to speak by phone, but is here in person, so I'd like to invite forward Crystal Irving.
Thank you. My name is Crystal Irving, and I'm president of SEIU Local 221, speaking in support of this item. As you know, we represent workers in the jail, some of which you've heard from today. I hope that the state audit is a wake-up call for the Sheriff's Department. We have spoken loud and clear about the changes that are needed to keep the detainees safe in our jails. The Sheriff's Department has a transition period and will have new leadership in the coming months, and you know what needs to be done. Recruit the proper amount of staff, end mandatory overtime, and we need to draw a big, bold line between sworn officers and medical decisions, and it needs to be done today. We are hearing a lot of talk about how things are changing, and it's one thing to talk the talk, and it's another thing to walk the walk. And now is the time for action. I would like to thank Chair Fletcher and Vice Chair Vargas and the board for adding more light to this crisis, and we hope that this audit will finally kickstart some needed changes. Thank you.
Chair Fletcher, that concludes public comment on this item.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone who called in. Thank you to our state auditor for all of the work. We'll start with Supervisor Desmond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate it, and I appreciate that you and our Vice Chair Vargas brought this item forward. And for Mr. Tilden, for your report, thank you very much. This is certainly a wake-up call, and I'm sure we're going to try to follow all of the recommendations. But what I would like to say is, you know, we're all kind of culpable here in this with realignment that happened about, 3 or 4 years ago. When realignment happened in the state, let a lot of nonviolent criminals, low drug use criminals out into the streets of our cities in the state of California. That brought with it a lot of people with mental health issues that we were not able to deal with. And we did not get the resources adequate, I think, to do that. To care for these people, many who are still homeless on our streets. So what I would like to ask is in the legislative request that we also ask for resources, because we don't have the facilities, as you've heard from many of our speakers, we don't have the facilities to do, you know, the private one-on-one conversations that need to take place. We don't have enough personnel. You know, we need the resources, and you know, the sheriffs, our law enforcement their cause is to deal with crime and criminals, not mental health. And I do agree we need to have more of that within our jails, but we'd like to get resources from the state is what I'm asking in this legislative going forward, so that we were able to provide these resources that are desperately needed in our jails so we can reduce the number of deaths. So resources tied with the ask for more mandates would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson.
Thank you, Supervisor Desmond. I was going to say a lot of the same things, so I'm not going to repeat it. I do want to thank the Auditor's Office. It's an excellent report. You all are a shining star up there in Sacramento. No matter what you pursue, you guys do it in such a great way, and I just want to tell you how much I appreciate your hard work. I do know that over the last decade, though, that the prison system went through a lot of the same issues. We're changing the direction of how we use corrections and what we do in terms of best practices. So I think that this is a hallmark opportunity to take advantage. And I want to thank my colleagues for bringing this letter forward. I'd be happy to support it. I think that when people, as Supervisor Vargas said, when people are in our custody, we have a moral obligation to make sure that they don't die. And the other thing is, I think Supervisor Desmond's correct. If we want better results, then we have to have better training and better policies in place with the resources necessary. So I think it's really important that as we move forward that we request more resources. And I do think that with Prop 47 and other legislation, our population has changed from 30 years ago, and we do have greater challenges. And so I'm glad that this board is stepping up to those challenges. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Thank you. So I also would like to echo the words of my colleagues. And this is just a really helpful report, and you all have done a really wonderful and thorough job. And thank you for taking a hard look at a hard problem. So just thank you very much for giving us something to act on. Because I think it's pretty clear from the audit that our current system is broken. And each life lost in custody, it's a failure. When you have 185 deaths over 14 years, it's a slow motion tragedy. Unfortunately, I think this audit showed us that San Diego is doing one of the worst in the state. And this is not in line with our values and our morals here in San Diego County, and I'm strongly in support of the movement by my colleagues, Vice Chair Vargas and Chair Fletcher, to act. I appreciate them bringing this action forward today. I think it's necessary and timely and vital. Part of the problem, of course, is that we are using our jail system as a mental health, drug treatment, and homeless shelter system. The state audit shows us once again why this approach is inherently flawed. We really need to get people the help when they need it, where they need it, and from the right professionals. So again, I'm proud to support this today and want to continue working forward on all the other work that we are doing here at the county to really try to fix these challenges that we see in our jails on so many fronts. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you to all my colleagues. I also want to thank the State Auditor, Mr. Tilden. I appreciated the opportunity to participate in your process leading up to this report, and appreciate the thoughtful effort you put into it. And as a board, as was pointed out in the audit, there is limited jurisdiction the Board of Supervisors has regarding some of the policies, and so we appreciate the efforts. And again, I want to thank and commend Under Sheriff Kelly Martinez for her proactive action to implement a whole series of these and enshrine those, and again support our legislative efforts, having met with our legislative delegation as they consider a range of issues to enshrine those in state law, perhaps not just for San Diego County, but for all counties, to make sure all jails are adhering to the best policies and practices. And as a board, we're going to continue to do what we can, whether it's mobile crisis response teams, community care, the efforts around keeping people in a better quality of life and state. I also want to mention the efforts and the challenges we face here around behavioral health workforce issues. There is a critical shortage of behavioral health workforce, and we can continue to add clinicians to the budget. We can continue to add peer support specialists and social workers to connect people. We can continue to add drug and alcohol treatment. But if you cannot hire them, it is not just a component of, yes, we need to pay them more, but there simply are not enough. There is a critical shortage of behavioral health workers in the state of California, and we have a great working group that is tackling these issues. Workforce Partnership has brought online several training programs that are now online. We're working on a series of initiatives, but we have to be mindful that, again, adding mental health clinicians to the budget is a great step, but having the ability to actually hire them, integrate them in. I also want to mention the auditor pointed out some of the physical space. We heard from that from some of our public speakers as well around challenges around physical space, which requires us to invest in renovations. it requires us to invest in creating that. These jails were not designed with the mental health space, with the drug treatment space, with all of those things, and so we're going to have to continue to do all of that, along with supporting our workforce, our sworn workforce, our non-sworn workforce, who have an incredibly difficult job in very hard conditions, and we appreciate what they do, and we're going to continue to work to make sure they are equipped, staffed, trained, resourced, and provided the physical space to allow them to do their job as best they can. So thank you, everyone, for this, and a special thank you to the State Auditor, and thank you for joining us today. With that, we have a motion from Vice Chair Vargas, seconded by myself, to adopt the recommendations in Agenda Item 15. Please vote.
Chair Fletcher, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
We're going to go to Agenda Item 16, exploring the feasibility of establishing an Ag Pass program in the County of San Diego. This was an item brought forward by Supervisors Desmond and Anderson. Let me ask them if they would like to make any introductory comments on this item before we hear from public speakers.
Thank you, Chair, and it's a pleasure to bring this item forward along with Supervisor Anderson and on behalf of stakeholders such as the San Diego County Farm Bureau. Today's letter is to explore the feasibility of creating an Ag Pass. So an Ag Pass can provide limited access during a wildfire or an emergency to restricted areas for those caring for their agricultural assets, such as irrigating, feeding animals, and transporting livestock. To be clear, the Ag Pass is not an automatic entry into an emergency area or into burning flames. It will always be up to the emergency personnel on the scene to grant or deny access into some of these restricted areas. But in other counties, the vetted holder of the Ag Pass must participate in safety training and be approved. So this wouldn't be granted easily. But the San Diego agriculture provides over 12,000 jobs and has an economic impact of just under $2 billion here in the county. So I've heard of many stories that during emergencies where farmers and ranchers, they decided to stay and remain on their property instead of evacuating to protect their assets because they feared they would not be let back in to care for either their crops or their animals. So we want everyone to be safe, and by creating an Ag Pass program, we can potentially encourage more to evacuate if there's a possibility they may be able to get back before the general public is let back into the area if they have that potential option to take care of their livestock and or plants. So the Ag Pass has been successful in many other counties, and I encourage my colleagues to support this item just to explore the feasibility of creating an Ag Pass here in San Diego County. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Supervisor Desmond. I personally witnessed this through the Horse Creek fire that ravished my district in the Cedar fire. And having access and having emergency services working with those folks is a huge, huge benefit. And we have 180 days in this, and I'm hoping that we can do it faster because we don't need to reinvent the wheel. Other counties have already instituted this with great success. And of course, we want to make sure that those people, they're taking care of their farms, but more importantly, taking care of their animals, are safe, and that they're not going in and putting their lives at risk, because that would make the problem much worse. However, I personally led in the Horse Creek fire all sorts of convoys, feeding our firefighters and then feeding those animals that were stuck behind. And I think that this is one of those deals where new leadership takes new eyes. They look at the problem from a different angle, and it's a great opportunity today to step up our game when it comes to firefighting. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me ask the clerk to call forward the public speakers on this item.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 7 requests to speak on this item, 5 in person and 2 by phone. Also note for the record that we received 24 e-comments on this item, all in favor. Any members of the public that requested to speak by phone on item 16, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. We'll begin with the in-person speakers. We'll begin with those in favor, followed by those in opposition. As your name is called, please come forward to stand against the east wall under the murals until it is your turn to speak. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board, and I'll ask you to please state your name for the audio record. I'd like to invite forward Katie Moretti, Audra, and Jason Robo.
Good morning. My name's Katie Moretti. I am the acting president now of the San Diego County Imperial California Cattlemen's Association chapter. We lost our president, Steve Tellum, in January, so I've stepped into his shoes. I am a third-generation rancher. My family settled in San Isabel in the 1890s. California Cattlemen's sponsored the Bill 1103, which is the livestock pass, and that's what I'm here specifically to speak about. I think it's important that the Board of Supervisors understands when there is a fire, cattle, and I'm going to only speak about cattle, but you can fill in goats, sheep, hogs. Cattle do not fall under animal control. There is nobody to evacuate them other than the ranchers. This concept isn't new. In 2003, for the the Cedar Fire, the sheriffs called my dad, and we went to Boulder Creek they said, you need to come down and get your cows out. We went to Boulder Creek. Sheriff came out and staged us, and he said, I'm going to take you in there when it's safe. Unfortunately, it got dark. He came out and he said, I have good news and bad news. Bad news is it's still not safe enough. I feel for you to go in. Good news, your cows have been got in the slurry for the last airdrop, and now they're pink and they're going to be easy to find. Next morning, we went in and got them. In the 2007 Harris fires, another aspect of this is my brother, Rick Moretti, and my cousin, Bud Caza, cut fire breaks in Mesa Grande on the Mesa Chiquita Ranch, and then when the firemen got there, they could lead them in and show them where it was at. We can show them where our water sources are. But back to the cattle, if the ranchers can't get in to move them or feed them, there's no avenue. Animal control will not feed 100 head of cattle, nor do they need to. Animal control will not take water in for 100 head of cattle, nor should they. So this was enacted, I believe the governor signed it October 7th, if my memory serves me correct, and I started making phone calls at the end of October to the various counties to encourage that we do this. I think that a couple things have changed in fire. I think that the firefighters and the fire chiefs understand fire differently. They can kind of guess, fire's unpredictable, but they can kind of predict, hey, this fire is going to get to this ranch in 2 or 3 hours, call this rancher and let them come in and get their cattle out. The other thing that's happened, for what reasons that I don't know, but it's not my concern, is that the roadblocks get put up sooner and they're taken down later. So if you have a week of evacuations and a week of those roads being closed down, ranching is 24/7. They still need to get in and feed their cattle, water their cattle, check on them, make sure the fences are in. So I would really encourage everybody or the Board of Supervisors to approve this. I think that 1103 is already enacted and is pretty straightforward, what the governor signed.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Stopping someone's time, that was nice. Anyway, Audra, so this is another way for you guys to probably control stuff, because, Jim, you said it's not going to be easily granted for these applications to be approved to confirm they're a bona fide rancher or whatever. Who's going to be determining that? Do you know? You can answer, Jim. No, you can't. Oh, so you just won't because you don't want to tell me. That's interesting. And when they get this pass holder, it's to indemnify the county from any potential liability as well. So are they going to be liable? I don't understand. But the fact is, when people are able, like if somebody has the capabilities to fight a fire on their own property, it says it's going to be a misdemeanor if they try and go rescue their animals. So is it a misdemeanor if you stay on your property and try and fight it yourself? And then are you going to say, well, you don't have a pass to be here? It's like you guys want to act like you're helping, but I feel like this is just another way to control and maybe, I don't know, see who is a rancher and who has property, who has animals, who has agriculture, something that you guys can, use and take away from people. You don't even want us to be in unincorporated areas, but yeah, I just feel like this is more control. People should have the option to go back to their property and save their animals and not, face criminal charges for it or have to ask permission. We're always asking for permission for these things when it should be a given that you can go take care of your livestock or whatever it is that you're at risk of losing. I mean, we pay enough property tax, it's ridiculous.
Next speaker, please.
Jason Robo, I think it is a bit redundant and a waste of time to say that like somebody that's a resident in one of these places is in fire danger and they have assets that they have to file a form. I mean, you can risk your life eating fast food, but not to go to your property, I don't know. Claim Jumper has an item on the menu called literally the Widowmaker, so. Heart disease, hooray. Yeah, and H2O, groundwater, I think Audra's mentioned it before, there's like an excessive amount of this stuff, but obviously scarcity is good for the economy, especially because water has become a future now, which just means that scarcity is even better than ever. But yeah, I know of a farmer who had to get smuggled into his property by a forestry worker, so that's an option, I guess, if they don't get the pass. And yeah, rooftop gardening I think would be great, just on the note of farming in general. We should have had victory gardens after COVID, but instead they took seeds away some places, so that shows how much they care about our health, which I've said our health's on a shakier foundation than a handshake with Michael J. Fox in previous comments. But yeah, sustainability is more so about sustaining inefficiency, in my opinion. I mentioned the practice of silviculture, and I think that also that the county and city should be having edible and maybe aromatic plants, which would help with standard of life. And that would be helpful. And livestock is way more inefficient than crops, speaking of inefficiency, and yeah, the toxic stuff that they use in them. Yeah, poison, I think that prisons are kind of just like this a livestock version of humans and whatnot also, and they're routinely found dead because of the unhealthy conditions. Documentary Earthling talks about our treatment of animals, very interesting, and I think it's kind of ironic too that we end up becoming what we eat, and everybody's got their masks on, facial security blankets, living in fear in their drywall caves. What are they, chicken?
Next speaker, please.
Yeah, I didn't hear my name called, sir, for the no side. Alan C. for the no on that agenda. And the reason why, not really no for the ranchers, because if anybody knows the land, it's the ranchers. They know their land. They don't need a permission. They don't need a training class or anything. CAL FIRE, you guys know the land too as far as fire. It should be immediate. When this rancher needs to get in there, feed their animals, take care of their cattle, the sheep, they need to get in right away. They do not have to sit through a seminar beforehand because you have somebody in a classroom environment that's going to decide what's right, what's wrong. No, the ranchers know their land because they've invested. Let them do what they got to do. So in that respect, Jim, I'm actually kind of green / but you see where I'm coming from. And I'll still say it every time I hear about this fire, let's look at prevention. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Bury the power lines. We got CARB funds going into charging stations, yet we don't bury the power lines. We can put a man on the moon in '69, yet we still can't keep the lights on. Here it is 2022. Look at how to prevent fires, not coming up more games and routines like we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now hear from those that requested to speak by phone. When it is your turn to speak, you'll be unmuted and you will hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments after the beep. I'll remind the callers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. Begin with our first caller.
Consuelo. Authority. Asking permission from government. There is no authority on the earth that can rightfully govern your life. Born to this world, you and you alone control your eyes, your ears, your tongue, your hands, and your mind. All authority which claims to be able to dispose of you and your abilities is deceit. You were born to this world so that you might have the free agency of life. Life is liberty. With liberty and faith in this world, you can learn and do anything. Anyone who tells you that you must yield your mind, your body, your possessions to authority is evil. Understand that choices made of your own free will are not evil. There is nothing wrong with sacrifice if it is made willingly. But sacrifice without choice is not sacrifice. It is slavery. Authority always places demands on people by force. Authority never asks permission. Humans actually believe that it's government that gives them their rights. Every constitution in the world is a code of conduct for the government to follow to ensure, protect, defend, vindicate, and uphold your rights, our rights. The government does not give us our rights. The government is obliged to protect those rights. A slave is one who waits for someone to come and free him. Wake up, San Diego. Wake up, world.
Thank you. And Chair Fletcher, that concludes public comment on this item.
All right, thank you. Go to Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
First of all, I just want to thank my colleagues for, being responsive. I know this has been a big issue in our community and bringing this forward, and I think it's important that we take into account that obviously someone's got to get the horses and the cattle out, and that's a real problem and something we don't really have a plan for. I do want to express that as we put together this feasibility study, it's really important that we take into account the impact on workers and ag workers and labor rights. One of the things I am concerned about is that, in the 2017 Thomas fire, for example, farm workers reported a huge range of smoke-related symptoms, from basically being forced to work and continue working right in the shadow of fire that was approaching quite rapidly. And, it's clearly quite dangerous, as well as really pretty terrible to have folks working in a fire zone. So I think this should go without saying, but obviously, as we look to think about what it would look like to have an Ag Pass program, I want to just really highlight the importance of protecting workers and making sure folks not only are not being forced to work in unsafe conditions, but also if they are even voluntarily going to work, have access to N95 masks and other safety equipment.
Thank you. Would you like to make a motion?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a motion to approve item 16.
Second.
All right. We have a motion by Supervisor Desmond, seconded by Supervisor Anderson, to approve the recommendations in item 16. Please vote.
Chair Fletcher, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
All right, we're at 11:45. Our next item is probably going to take the better part of an hour. I think we'll go ahead and break for lunch now, and we will reconvene at 12:30. Thank you all.